Data is your facts that can be recorded, and you can see this is technically what the definition is, which have implicit meaning, or you can derive related information out of that. Then only it becomes data. Otherwise, technically it is referred as garbage. See, other term, that is database, this also you would have heard from many of your friends or colleagues. Okay, so let's say if you speak to a sales guy and ask what is a database, so they would tell you to some extent database is collection of customer information or collection of tables to some extent. But database is beyond that. Database is collection of your database objects such as tables. Now, I believe you would be understanding what a table is. Table is a rectangular structure which contains your rows and columns. Your fields are referred as columns, and your data in a horizontal rows are referred as record. Okay, in a table. Okay, so tables are your database objects, followed by you have objects such as views, indexes, triggers, cursors, functions, stored procedures, constraints, so on. Okay, so database is collection of your database objects. Okay, now many people may ask, what is this object now? So object is an entity which has its own identity. Like in real time, if you see, I am also one object because my identity differs from someone else. Okay, I have my own set of properties. Then if you see, your laptop is also an object. Okay, it differs from others. Similarly, in terms of database, if you see, one table differs from other or from other objects. A table is different from view or a stored procedure. So any object or any entity which has its own identity is referred as an object. Okay, now you will also hear a term schema. Okay, now see, schema, usually people will think about the structure. That is true. Okay, schema is also referred as the structure of your database object, but here I'm talking in terms of your Microsoft SQL Server, wherein schema is referred as container of objects. Okay, like when you create any object, it would get created in a database. Okay, within the database where, so it would be created in a schema. By default, that schema or a container is referred as DBO. So DBO is the default schema of your Microsoft SQL Server. Other than that, you can create a schema based on your requirements. So when I say schema, you can think of a folder which contains the relevant files. Okay, like for example, in your drives, what you will do is you will create certain folders, right? Let's say you have created a personal folder, travel folder, office folder, wherein you keep the related files. For example, I am keeping all my files in an office folder, or let's say I am keeping all my files of SQL in an SQL folder. Okay, so schema would be a folder in nutshell, you can say, within a database. So it would be an hierarchy. Okay, anyways, so schema is container of objects. Now next is this term database management system. Also you will hear, or you would listen to this term very often with your friends and colleagues. So let's understand what is this DBMS all about. DBMS stands for Database Management System, which is your collections or of your programs or codes using which you can define or construct or manipulate a database. Like for example, if you see, you would have heard of companies like Oracle, Microsoft. Then you have companies like IBM, Sybase, Teradata. So these are the companies which provide you the product, okay, using which you can perform your tasks such as defining a database, constructing or manipulating a database. Okay, so your DBMS is a collection of programs or codes. So it is in nutshell as an interface using which you can define, construct or manipulate your database and its objects. So companies, I have given you certain list. So these are the ones which are very prevalent in your market, such as Oracle, Microsoft, Teradata, IBM, Sybase, even you have open source. Now these listed companies which I am talking about, they are going to provide you the DBMS, but they will charge you a license fee for corporate uses. Okay, for learning purpose there are no fees, but for corporate purpose, when you work in an organization and if you are using it for commercial purpose, for that you have to pay the license fee. Okay, so Oracle provides you the Oracle database management system. Microsoft gives you Microsoft SQL Server. Teradata has a Teradata with different versions. IBM provides you the DB2 database. Sybase company provides you the Sybase database. Open source, this one is the, this is a community open source in which, the softwares are given for free. Okay, like one of the database management system, MySQL is freely available. Okay, freely available, but very less support you will get for free product, because it depends on the community if they are giving any kind of updates or patches. Whereas if you go forward with the company related database management system, you get a lot of technical support, and if you have any issues, you can directly speak to the companies or the vendors. They are going to solve your problem. Okay, now in this case we are going to especially in the analytics and data science space, you will see Microsoft's database management system, that is MS SQL Server, is used a lot because of its it has a lot of feature with a lot of compatibility, and pricing is also very much competitive pricing. So at lesser cost, it provides you a lot of options, and it is very user friendly to use. Lot of support is there, a lot of resources are available to work on. So due to which Microsoft SQL Server is used a lot, especially with the mid-sized companies. They are using a lot this database management system. Even the bigger companies are also switching to Microsoft SQL Server. So that is why we have also chosen MS SQL Server to train on. Okay, otherwise you could be trained on Oracle also, Teradata also, DB2 also, no problem. Okay, but whatever be the database management system, you are going to use SQL as a language to interact with. So obviously you are going to learn SQL language to interact with the database. Once learned, you can use them on any platform. Okay, the only thing is little bit syntax changes would be required, because every company, what they have done is they have customized these syntaxes based on their database management system, but those are not of very much difference. So once learned the database and SQL, you can use it across any other database management system as well, with few syntax changes. Okay, so here using DBMS, when I talk about defining a database, let's say within the DBMS you want to define a database and its object. So what does that mean? So obviously let's consider more in terms of table. So suppose if you want to create a table or define a table, what you need to do first, you have to tell what table you want to create, and then what kind of columns you want to have, with what kind of data you want to store. Okay, or let's say on columns you want to apply any kind of rules or restrictions or constraint. So all those kind of tasks would come under defining a database. Okay, then next is constructing a database. When you are creating, let's say, a database and its object, so you can specify that how much space you want to allocate for them. Okay, if you are not telling anything, default memory or spaces can be allocated. Okay, the next one is manipulating a database. Now when I say manipulating a database, it means, let's consider you have created a table. Okay, you have created a table. After that, what would be the next step? So obviously you would be interested in inserting new records into the table, or let's say you wanted to do changes in the existing record, or let's say based on certain requirement you want to delete certain records, okay, or let's say you want to retrieve the records or display the records from the table. So those kinds of tasks, or let's say you wanted to apply certain functions to perform certain manipulations, then those kinds of tasks will come under manipulating a database. Okay, so these are certain kind of tasks you can do. Apart from that, you can do there are a lot of administration issues which needs to be solved. So we are not going to talk in terms of database administration, which is a pure task of your DBAs, that is database administrators, but yes, we are going to talk in terms of the end user. So being an analyst, consultant, data scientist, you will be working as an end user of data, your database and its objects like table, wherein you would be interested in retrieving the records and then performing certain analysis, okay, or making certain reports or doing certain changes. So you would be the one who would be doing all those things. Okay, so that is how we are going to take forward this course. Okay, now let's talk about a bit of history of your database management system. Little bit it would be theoretical, but for your information purpose I'm going to share all these information to you. Okay, now let's talk about the history of your database management system, wherein if you see in the first when it started, so IBM was the company which started with which gave you the first database management system. Okay, so they gave you that file could be your text file. Okay, in current scenario, if you see, you have a text file or you have a CSV file, okay, or you have a file called a data file, or which comes with the .dat extension, or an ASCII file. So these are certain examples of your flat file database management system. So let's consider, let's say if it is a text file, so let's consider you have information pertaining to a customer, orders, let's say shipment, transactions, so on and so forth. So text file in which all the information was stored. Okay, so let's say customer information is stored in customer text file, sales information is stored in sales text file, let's say orders information is stored in an order text file, shipment information is present in a shipment file, so on and so forth. Okay, and they are present at one location, one drive, for example. Okay, so the first was your flat file database management system, but you can imagine that when companies are working, they use a lot of data, and lot many text files or flat files were there present at one location. So people were not very comfortable, because at one location all files dumped and they have to get certain information. So they thought of, okay, let's move towards a situation or a scenario wherein at least we can store our files in certain hierarchy. So that is where, when you can see, you have a concept of if you correlate it with, you have a concept of folders wherein you are storing certain relevant files. Okay, so that was your hierarchical database management system, wherein the files were stored in certain hierarchy. So all related files, like all files related to sales would be there in the sales hierarchy, all files related to customer would be present in the customer hierarchy, all files related to a product or a service would be present in the product or service hierarchy, so on and so forth. Okay, so at least it was easy for people to go to certain hierarchy and then retrieve the information. Okay, so but again people were not very happy. So let's consider currently, let's say I'm sitting in Singapore or London office, and Deepika wants to access my files. Okay, so in that scenario, if you see, she has to travel to my location, let's say to Singapore or London or New Jersey, or let's say I'm in Bangalore. So she has to travel to my location and then she can access my files. Okay, so it was very difficult, it was time consuming, and every time people need to travel look to location physically and then access the file. So it was very costly and time consuming and cumbersome as well. So then people came up with network database management system, wherein you had the concept of client and server. Okay, so let's consider we have a centralized server to which different clients can connect and they can access the data. So from any location you can connect to the database, and then you can access the data. Like currently you will have servers located in, let's say, Singapore or London, or let's say somewhere in the North America, or you have Cincinnati is there, or New Jersey is there, or London is there, or Frankfurt is there, even in Bangalore it is there. People can connect to the database from different location, and then they can access the data. Okay, so that came with the advent of network database management system. But again, people were not very happy, because what was happening was, if they have to get certain information, like for example, let's say a customer AE2019, okay, so he or she has done what kind of purchases in past 6 months, and to which locations the orders have been delivered, and on what kind of revenues have been realized from that customer, so how much business the customer has given. Okay, so to get all this information, what they had to do was, they have to open the files physically. Still they were using the flat files. They had to open the files physically. They had to get, let's say customer information would be there in terms of customer ID. So first customer ID is taken, and then let's say there is information related to the product or service, so that file is open, and then customer ID is searched in that, and then with that on which days the shipments have been done, and what kind of revenue has been realized. So different files, different information need to be looked upon. It was cumbersome and time consuming. Okay, so then came the relational database management system, wherein the data started getting stored in terms of tables. Okay, so table is your rectangular structure in which you have rows and columns, or you can say fields, and you have the rows. So your field denotes your column, okay, like customer name, let's say the sales, so on and so forth. So these are nothing but your fields. Fields are referred as the column names, and then each row represents your record, which contains your data part. Okay, so that is how your RDBMS is. Full form is Relational Database Management System, in which it allows you to store data in terms of table. So these tables can be very well joined, and after joining these tables, the information can be retrieved. Obviously these tables have to be joined with the common column. More on this joining and all we'll see. So and then comes the object oriented database management system, wherein each object in your database, if you want to perform certain tasks, you can do drag and drop. Okay, but it has certain limitations, so it's always good to write the queries to perform the task. Okay, so RDBMS allows you to write the SQL query to perform the task, even though in object oriented database management system, in the background the SQL query gets generated, but RDBMS gives you lot of flexibility to do the task. And also please note that if you are having the data which is generated from the transactions, okay, like if you talk in terms of financial services, wherein daily if you see in the banks, lot of money is deposited and retrieved, or let's say the bank is investing the money in the stock market, or so on and so forth. So it generates daily transactions data or information. Or in insurance also, if you see, the similar kind of data is generated. In case of healthcare also, like daily certain information pertaining to drug or patients that are getting generated, and so those are nothing but the transactional data. Or let's say if you see in case of retail, daily sales and purchases in retail, e-commerce is being done. Okay, so whenever such kind of information needs to be stored, they are best to be stored in your relational database management system. Okay, so now I am moving to the PPT, wherein the next slide talks about relational database management system. This is your DBMS, where data or information is stored in a tabular format. So you have columns and rows, where columns contain the field names and row contains the data or information. So each row is referred as a record, each field is referred as a column. Okay, column names. Now see, I am talking from the starting of the class SQL. So what is this SQL all about? So SQL stands for structured query language. Okay, SQL stands for structured query language, which uses your commonly used English commands, or you have the instructions. When we talk with each other, we tell some words which are commonly used. Okay, so these English alike commands are referred in your SQL language. Okay, it is also referred as a high level language. When I say high level language, it doesn't mean a hi-fi kind of stuff. See, if you see the history of programming, first people came up with binary language, which was completely zeros and ones. This is what your machine understands. But it was very cumbersome and difficult to learn that programming and do the coding. So that is why the next step was to have a language which is combination of your machine level or assembly level codes and some kind of instructions, okay, with the zeros and ones. Okay, but people were still not very comfortable, although you had some English commands there as well with the assembly level codes. But still it was technical. Like if you see C language, it is little technical. But people wanted that language which is easy to learn and understand and can be implemented as well. So they came up with a high level language wherein all the commands or instructions were in purely English, and these were your day-to-day words or commands used. Okay, so that is why this is now more prevalent. Like if you see, you have languages like Java is there, okay, even SQL is there, SAS language is there. So these are your high level language. Even many times C++ is also considered as high level language. Okay, now if you see, SQL has different categories. You have DDL, that is your data definition language. So this part of SQL will purely deal with the structure of your database and its objects. Like for example, I want to create, so this will have commands such as create. So create is used to create a table or any other database objects. Then if you want to do changes in the structure of your database and its object, then you will have alter. Okay, then the next is for example, you wanted to remove the records completely from your table. Okay, all the records you want to remove, you have a truncate command. And then suppose if you want all the for example, all the records with the table itself to be completely removed, so then you have a drop command. Okay, so on this we are going to see more in detail in these classes. Like you have a class dedicated for DDL. Okay, apart from that, you have certain constraints which also come under your DDL language. The next one is your data manipulation language, which consists of your commands such as select, insert, update, delete. So select is used to retrieve the records, insert is used to insert new records, then you have something called update. Using update you can do changes in the existing records, and using delete also you can remove the records. So and then you have many functions to be dealt with, which is used for manipulation. So that comes under your data manipulation language. More on this we will see in the DML session. So in your work, you will be working more on the data manipulation language. Day in, day out, you have to perform manipulations, you have to generate reports, you have to do certain analysis. So for that, you will be using your DML. So DDL, why we are going to cover a bit. Reason, it will help you in understanding the complete flow, that how, data enters, how the objects are created, and how, when the data enters the table, how the objects are going to behave, or how the database is going to throw an error if certain, the restrictions are not met, so on and so forth. So it gives you an idea. Okay. so the picture gets clear to you. So that is why, even we are going to cover the DDL commands for you. Okay, and then the DML will be there. So this data control language entirely deals with the administration part of your database, so which in our syllabus we are not going to cover, because it is an entirely administration part, which is not to be done by your data analyst or data scientist or consultant, so on and so forth. And then comes your transaction control language. This we are going to cover. So what kind of transactions? The transactions, certain queries which you are writing, if you want to control them, you can use transaction control language, wherein you can use commands such as begin, transaction, rollback, commit. So these we are going to cover. In case of data control language, I'll tell you what kind of task usually people do, the DBAs. So they are going to manage the database. Like suppose if any new entrant in an organization, they will give them certain rights, or if someone has left the organization, from their username the rights will be taken back. Okay, apart from that, they are going to manage this kind of task, like disaster recovery. Okay, so let's say if any kind of database is shut down, or anything is crashed, so how they are going to recover. Or let's say if let's say any kind of natural calamity has taken place, or any terrorist attack, so how in a short time they can make the database up, they can make sure that at some other location people can access the database and work is still not hampered. Okay, and then mirroring of database. Suppose if one location database is not working, so their users can be switched to other location database, so on and so forth. So that kind of tasks are usually taken care by your database administrator. So we are not going to cover that part. Okay, now let's understand about this TSQL. Now see, as I said you in the starting of the session, that every company, what they have done is they have customized the SQL language based on their software. So Microsoft, what they have done is they have done customizations with the SQL language to interact with Microsoft SQL Server, and they have given the name as TSQL. Okay, so you can see that it is the language used to interact with SQL Server, and they have enhanced SQL and uses them as a dialect, okay, with your SQL Server. Similarly, in Oracle, the SQL which you use there, that is commonly referred as your PLSQL or Oracle SQL, so on and so forth. Usually PLSQL is not right term, because PLSQL is a component of procedural language, wherein you write the procedures to perform certain tasks. But commonly people call that SQL, entire SQL, as a PLSQL, which you use with Oracle. Okay, so that is Oracle SQL. And then for Teradata, you have Teradata SQL, so on and so forth. Okay, so TSQL is specific to your Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, now let's move to next. The last slide is not required by us currently. We are going to see it in detail when we will do our data manipulation language. Okay, now let's talk about data types. Money. Could you please tell me, if I say data type, what will come to your mind? So money says that numeric character, so that is what will come to the mind. So data type means what kind of data, or what type of data, whether it is numeric, character, date, so on and so forth. Okay, so see, this data type would represent what kind of data you want to have in your column. Now many times people would ask that see, these tables and all would be already created, but why should we know about data type? Everything would be in place when we are going to work. So see, what happens is, data type, first of all, it will give you clear picture that what kind of data is going to flow in your tables, okay, in the columns. Okay, and again many times, see, what happens is due to this width, what is that, memory allocated with every data type. Suppose if a certain data type which has lesser width, let's consider a situation wherein the data type allows you to store only 10 characters for a column. Okay, and as you can see that day by day the size of data is increasing. What if someday 12 characters of information is sent? So in that case, database will not allow you to enter such information. So what you have to do is you have to do the changes in the width, and then only it can be inserted. So suppose on a fine morning you went and you saw that the records are not getting inserted into the table, and if you have the idea that what kind of data type and how it behaves when the width is shortened compared to what kind of data is being flowed, so then error may happen or might happen. So you can check and you can inform the different stakeholders, you can do the changes, you can inform the development team or the maintenance team to do the changes, so that because what happens is when you work in an organization, you will have certain SLAs to stick. So if at timely the action can be taken, it will help a lot of time to be saved, and again companies will not lose on time, as well as they need not have to pay the penalty, because when the SLAs are missed, many times the companies have to pay the penalty. Okay, so it will help you to save a lot of time and even the money. So that is why if you know that how things work, what are the data type, because these are the basic structure or building blocks of your database, so it helps you a lot. Okay, and it gives you clear picture. So let's understand what are the different types of data types. So if you see, these are the different categories. Okay, like exact numerics, approximate numeric. When I say exact numerics, it means my data is a complete number without any fractional part. Okay, so it means integers. Okay, with any kind of sign. Then you have something called approximate numerics. It means that numbers have the fractional part in it. So on and so forth. So you have different categories. So need not be remembering the category, but the data type. Okay, so like for example, you have a data type such as int. Int stands for integer. Integer, I believe you understand that these are the numbers which are there on the number line, vary in between minus infinity to plus infinity, excluding these ends. Whatever numbers comes on the number line, they are referred as integer. Like suppose one number is 40,000, or let's say I have a number called minus 305. So this is an integer. Okay, but suppose if I have a number called minus 305.09, so is it an integer? No, because it has a fractional part. Okay, so so let's understand. So now people may ask that, see, you are showing me these many variants, so why these many variants? So see, here what happens is, with every data type you have certain memory allocated. Okay, like if you see int, for data type int, you have memory allocated as 4 bytes. Okay, so 4 byte means, see, in 1 byte you have 8 bits. Okay, so in 4 bytes you have how much? So you have 8 into so it would be 8 into 4, that is 32 bits of signed and unsigned integer. Okay, so you need not have to worry about all these technicality, because everything is there on place. You have to perform the analysis, that's it, or you have to prepare the reports. But then also, for your information, I am telling you, so tiny int, if I talk about, it will have 2 bytes of memory allocated. Big int is 8 bytes, so on and so forth. Okay, only thing is, all these kind of variants will allow you to have integer information. Okay, next one, if you see, is your approximate numerics. Under this category you have data types such as float and real. Now float and real, they will allow you to have numbers with fractional part, but the storage space allocated would be different. Float allows you to have 4 bytes of float or the data with the fractional part. Real allows you to have 8 bytes of such information. Okay, then next is your character strings. Okay, now if you see character strings, you have a data type such as char, varchar. So these are allowing you to have character kind of information, like anything which is involving your alphabets. Okay, or even a combination of alphabets and numerics, so on and so forth. Now here, why there is a difference in char and varchar, let's understand. Now currently I am on this Word file. So if you see, suppose if I have taken char 10 and varchar 10. So what is the difference? So char 10 means I have allocated 10 fixed memories. So 10 places which are fixed. Suppose I have received information which has 5 characters only. Okay. So what about the rest 5 memory allocated? So that will be also fixed, and altogether 10 places are fixed and rest 5 would be wasted, right? So you cannot use it, it is fixed. Whereas when I take the data type as varchar 10, so in that case what happens is, suppose if I have received 5 characters, so to the rest 5 characters what would happen? They will be returned back to your dynamic memory, okay, or your temporary memory, it would be returned back. So in that case you will be able to save certain memory, okay. But what if I have defined my data type as varchar 10 and I received 12 characters? So in that case, my data, do it get inserted into the table? No. Okay, so it's not like 10 characters inserted, 2 is not. No, it will not be like that. So the database will throw an error. It will tell you binary data truncated, or memory is shortened, something like that. The error would be given by the database. And then if you see, the other data type is text, which allows you to have bigger streams of string data to be stored, or character data to be stored. So this is how you have all these data types to be used. Then the next one is date and time. So if you see, you have data types pertaining to date. So date in SQL, if you see, let me tell you, the standard ANSI format is 4 wise MMDD. Okay, so this is how in SQL by default the dates would be stored. Dates can be accepted in this form other than that MMDD YY or 4 wise, okay, or DD triple M YY or 4 wise, but SQL Server will not accept dates in DD MM YY or 4 wise. Okay, DD MM YY or 4 wise, usually you will see in India we use these kind of dates, or in UK we use these kinds of date, but SQL Server is an American system. It doesn't allow you to have DDMM, okay, YY or 4 wise, except that other date forms are accepted, but by default it will be stored in an ANSI standard form, which is your 4 wise MMDD. Okay, this is your ANSI date format. Form or format, whatever it is. Okay. Okay. So this is about your date. So you have whenever you want to have dates to be stored, you have to take the data type as date. Similarly for time, the ANSI standard form is your hours, that is HH, then followed by MM, that is minutes, and then SS, that is seconds. Even you can store your time in terms of .SSSS as well, that is in nanoseconds also you can store. Similarly, you can have the combination of date and time. So for that the data type is date time. Okay, rest we'll see later. Then you have data types like binary strings. So binary data is your zeros and ones. So suppose if you want to have a binary data stored, so you have to define the data type as binary or var binary. So binary, let's say if I say binary 10, so you will have 10 places fixed, okay, and you can accept the binary data, but if you have lesser width of data or information, then space will be wasted. Whereas if you go forward for a data type var binary with 10, so it allows you to store data, binary information up to 10 places, but if anything goes beyond 10, then the data won't be accepted. Image allows you to have bigger streams of binary data. Okay, let's say you have any kind of image, so if you have to store that in the database, so that is converted into the binary equivalent and it can be stored. So obviously it will have the bigger streams of zeros and ones. Okay, so let's understand that what are the different operators used to perform the manipulation, because this is required. We are going to use it in our SQL sessions, so you must know which operator, what does it do. So if you see, we have different categories of operators, like we have arithmetic, comparison, logical, in, not in, so on and so forth. So let's understand one by one. Okay, this union to except, now this last four we are going to discuss when we are talking about joins. Okay, that time we will see this, not now. Now here you see operators such as arithmetic. So everyone knows that we have operators like plus, minus, star, division. Using this we can perform arithmetic operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Okay, apart from that, using plus you can concatenate two or more strings as well. That is also possible. So if you want to concatenate or join two or more strings, you can use plus. Okay. Although in from SQL Server 2012, you can use concatenate function to join or concatenate two or more strings, but before that it was plus only which was used to concatenate. Still you can use plus in these versions also to do the concatenation. Okay, next operator is your comparison operator. Suppose you want to do the comparison, saying that sales greater than 10,000. Okay, or let's say date greater than 1st of Jan 2020, so on and so forth. So if I have to do such comparisons, then I have to use the comparison operator. You can see for greater than you have greater than symbol, less than you have less than symbol, equal is given with the equal operator, not equal is given with the angle brackets, greater than equal you have greater than and equal, less than equal you have lesser than and equal. So these are the operators to be used, especially in SQL Server, and DB2 you have to use the operators. Whereas this GT, LT, EQ, NE, GE, LE, these are your short codes assigned to your operators, referred as mnemonics. Okay, these mnemonics are not applicable in case of Microsoft SQL Server or DB2. Okay, whereas in Oracle, Teradata, even in SAS, you can use these short codes or mnemonics instead of these operators. Okay, then next is your logical operator. Okay, this logical operator would be, suppose you want to combine two or more condition. Okay, let's say I wanted to say I am looking forward for the record which have sales greater than 10,000 and their location is Bangalore. Okay, so I wanted to combine these two conditions and I want to make sure both the conditions are met or satisfied. So in that case, I have to combine the condition by using the AND operator. So it is similar to your gates, logic gates in case of electronics. If you remember, some of you are from electronics background, wherein you would have done your AND gate, OR gate, NOR gate, wherein, you know, if two inputs, if I talk about AND gate, if the two inputs are true, then you get the result as true. Otherwise, if any of them are false, you get to see false. Okay, so in similar lines, in case of AND, if both the conditions are met, you get to have the desired outcome, or the operation is performed. Otherwise, you know, that operation is not performed. So AND means both the conditions or the combined conditions, all the combined conditions have to be met. Whereas you have an OR operator, which means, just a moment. So we have an OR operator, which means either of the conditions have to be met, means any of the conditions combined, if it is met, then you get to see your result or you get an outcome. Okay. Similarly, I have a not logical operator, which means vice versa. So suppose if you say true, it will inverse it to false. If you have taken false, it will, you know, inverse it to true. Okay. So that is how it is. So more on this we will see when we will do the session, although I am going to give you certain examples. Okay. Then you have in operator. Now see, this equal operator which we have seen, equal operator can equate only single value. But what if I want to match more than single value? Okay, in such cases you can use in operator, because individually using equal, if you do, you have to combine your equality conditions with or multiple times, then only you would be able to match it with more than single value. Okay, so that we will see the example. But the shorter replacement or the easier way to do the task would be using the in operator, using which you can equate more than single value. Okay, then comes, like, suppose if you want to exclude the set of values more than one value, then you can use not in operator. Okay, and in case if you want to give the range, okay, like you have a starting value and end value. Let's say you wanted to say that sales ranges between let's say 1 lakh to 5 lakh. Okay, so how to say? So you have to give the column name sales between, then you have to give the starting value and the ending value. Okay, so let's say it would be sales between 1 lakh and 5 lakh. So including both the ends, all the values would be considered. Okay, so between operator can be used on let's say numeric value, and it would be applicable on the date kind of value. Okay, then comes pattern matching. Now this is one of the very powerful operator. So suppose you are not very clear with what exactly you are looking forward. Okay, like for example, let's consider when you go to any kind of shop, and in past you have seen some of the patterns of dress material, but you do not exactly remember. So you will tell to the shopkeeper, see, I wanted to see a cloth or a dress material with white background, blue checks or stripes, so on and so forth. So you give your requirement, and then what happens is, so this is not maybe this is not what exactly you are looking forward. So you have given a pattern to your shopkeeper, and what he will do or she will do in turn, they will bring the set of the values which are matching your requirement. Okay, so from that you can pick what exactly you are looking forward. Okay, so that is in similar lines. In databases you have a like operator, using which you can do the pattern matching. Now to give your patterns, you can give these patterns with the help of wildcard. Okay, so each wildcard or character have certain meaning. For example, when I say percent as a wildcard to give my pattern, percent means 0 or any number of characters. Okay, underscore means a single character or placeholder. So if I have more than one places to be fixed, so I would use multiple underscores for that. And then suppose if I want to give range of characters, like suppose if I want to say a hyphen f, so it means that a b c d e f. Okay, and suppose if I want to exclude those range of characters, so I can use within the square bracket the caret operator followed by my range. So more on this you will understand when we will do our practical sessions. Currently I can give you the example, but more clear picture you will get to see when you will do your practical sessions. But that time I cannot start, so that is why I am explaining you beforehand, so that you have got some idea, so that day it will be easy for you to do. So let's move to examples. Like I wanted to show you that if you want to join or concatenate strings, you can use the plus operator. You can see I have used select, and in quotations I have used. Now for quotations, let me tell you one thing. In SQL Server and in DB2, only single quotation is accepted. Whereas in case of Oracle, Teradata, SAS, so on and so forth, SAS is a data warehousing tool. But then I'm referring to the syntaxes. So you can use single quotation also, and you can use double quotations also to give your strings. But in Microsoft SQL Server and in DB2, you have to always give your strings or dates in single quotations only. Okay. Now see, this is one thing which I have told, that how to concatenate your strings. You will understand more when we are going to do the practical session. Then apart from that, let's say if you have to give conditions. So currently directly I have used the where is one clause in SQL, using which you can give your conditions. So I have not written the complete SQL query, just to give you an example how you can combine your multiple conditions in where clause. Now please see, suppose if I am looking forward for a record which has a currency as either INR, that is Indian rupees, or GBP, that is Great British Pound, or USD, okay, that is United States dollar. So suppose if I want the records with these currencies only, so in that case, one way is by using equal operator, and every condition is combined with or. So it means where currency is either INR, or currency is GBP, or currency is USD. But if I increase more currencies like Australian dollar, or let's say Swiss franc, so on and so forth, so I need to again write or currency equal to, like that. So it would be cumbersome. So in such cases we can use in operator, and within the bracket we can give the list of values which we want to match. Okay, so using in operator you can match more than a single value. Okay, so if it is character, it can be enclosed in single quotation. If it is numeric, it would be without quotation. Okay, similarly you have an between operator, remember, which using which you can give your range. So how to use between operator? First you have to give in the where clause the column name followed by between. Between is an operator. You have to give start value and end value. So when I say where store between 10 and 50, so it means my store ranges from 10 to 50. It means 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 till 50. Okay, including both the ends, whatever numbers come, they would be including in the range. So between operator can be used on numeric values, as well as it could be used on date values. Okay, next is the pattern matching. How you are going to write your patterns? Let's see. Suppose I am looking forwards for the information pertaining to my let's say company, wherein I am looking forward for such records where the company name starts with A only. Okay, so I can have names such as Apple, I can have something as ABB, ACC, okay, like that. So how to give that pattern? Okay, so I can give where company like is an operator, and to give the pattern you have to use the wild character. Okay, so I want every time the company have to start with A. So in the quotation you have to give your pattern, and then you can give A as a letter followed by percent. So percent means 0 or any number of characters. Okay, now here I would like to tell you that by default, in case of SQL Server and DB2, anything which you give in quotation, they are not case sensitive. See, SQL language is not case sensitive for commands, but in few databases like Oracle, Teradata, even in SAS, whatever you give in quotation, they are case sensitive by default. But in case of SQL Server and DB2, by default, anything which you give in quotation, they are not case sensitive. But in case if you want to make them case sensitive means the spelling which you are writing, exactly it has to follow the same case, the spelling. Okay, if A is in capital or B is in small, we have to follow the same. Okay, by default it is not case sensitive, but in case if you want to make your values as case sensitive, you have to apply a collation property to make it case sensitive. Okay, so by default SQL whatever you give in quotation in Microsoft SQL Server, they are not case sensitive. Okay, so if the names have to start with A only, so it would be A%. Similarly, I am looking forward for those companies which are ending only with E, but they can start with anything. Like suppose I have companies like Apple, I have companies like Accenture, okay, I have companies like Ace, okay. Let's say something as, give me an example wherein the names are ending with E. Okay, So there could be any possible combinations which are starting with anything. Like let's consider an example, epitome. It ends with E. Okay. So but it starts with something else. Okay. So on and so forth. So it means percent %E. Similarly, if I am very specific for my company names only to start with A and end with E, okay, then the companies would be Apple, Ace, Accenture, so on and so forth. So it is starting specifically with A and ending with E. In between A and E, I want any set of characters. So then I have to place percent in between A and E. Similarly, if I am looking forward for companies which have I in it anywhere, either in the starting, middle, ending, so on and so forth. Like if you have examples, you can see examples like Philips have I in somewhere in the between. Okay. Similarly, I have a company called Intellect. Okay. Intellect I starts, it is I is there in the starting. Okay. Or let's say I have a company, I told something like let's consider I have Virtusa. Okay. In that I is there somewhere in the second position. So point is I could be anywhere. Okay. So I can have a pattern saying percent I percent. Okay. Similarly, let's consider, I'm very much specific that my company names have A as the second character. Like if you see, you have a company called Facebook. Okay. In Facebook, you have company, in the company name, you have A in the second place. Okay. Followed by any number of characters. So in that case, I have to fix the first place so that there is always one character in the first place followed by A and then percent. Similarly, if you are looking forward for company names which have C in the let's say third last position. Okay. Or you are looking forward for, so you can see that here in the end you have two underscores. Okay. In the starting percent C and then double underscore, it means C is in the third last position. Or let's say you are looking very specific for companies which can start either with A or B or C, D or E or F. So in the first place in the square bracket you can write A-F. Okay. So any of the one character from this range can come. Okay. In the starting, because I placed my square bracket in the starting. So it depends that in which place you have given your square bracket followed by percent. And then in the end, let's say, so here the examples, there could be a number of examples like Accenture is there, BCG is there, and then you have something called with C you can have Cadillac is there, D you have DRG is there, E you have Ericsson is there, F you have Facebook is there. What if I want to exclude these companies? So I can use a caret operator, A-F. Okay. So in that case, and then followed by percentage. In that case, I can have companies like Infosys is there, Wipro is there, TCS is there. So there are so many companies which would be applicable for this. Okay. So point is, this is how you are going to give your patterns. Okay. Now let me show you that how your SQL Server looks like. Okay. So see, you have to install it in the tomorrow session. So we are there to guide you that how you are going to install. In the meantime, make sure today, with the help of links which are provided in your chat, you are going to download, and it will give you different options of downloading. So I have told you specifically the second option, you have to put a check mark and you have to download image. I have shared for your reference. Okay. And also I have shared you the installation steps which we are going to use in the tomorrow session to do the installation on your system. Okay. So in that way you will be able to learn also how to do the installation. In case if you face any difficulty, we are there to help you. Okay. Because it is very much required for us to have the software for our practice and learning. Okay. So currently I am going, see, I have already SQL Server Management Studio only, but let's consider for the very first time in case if you are going to use this software. So how you are going to identify this? So you can in the search button in the start menu, you can type SQL Server, or you can type Microsoft SQL Server. Okay. So you can currently see SQL Server Management Studio is coming. I'll show you where you can find it exactly. So let me type Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, let me take this here. I'm taking this down here. Let it be. I can show you here in my start. So I have Microsoft SQL Server 2012. You will also be installing the 12, or in case if it is not getting installed, then 14, anything 14, 16, anything can be installed, but 12 is something which is used in many organizations. So Microsoft SQL, so you have SQL Server Management Studio under Microsoft SQL Server 2012. So you have to click this, or you can keep the shortcut for this in the desktop as well. So this is going to open. So once it is open, see, this software can be installed in two modes. When you work in an organization, it will be installed in SQL authentication mode. There you have to mandatorily give ID and password, okay, to enter into the database, okay. Whereas while working here for learning purpose, we do not require that kind of security, okay. So we can install in Windows authentication, wherein you need not give any password to connect directly. Here I am going to click on connect, and you will see that I would be able to connect to my database. You can see this object explorer, wherein you can see the different kind of the folders are appearing. Now let's say to write my SQL codes to interact with my database, what am I supposed to do is I have to click on this new query. So in this new query, this is your SQL Query Editor, okay. This is an editor window wherein you are going to write all your SQL codes, okay. Now you can see here, for example, I'm just telling you that suppose if you want to write a comment line, you wanted to give some textual information, like today is my first class. So this is not a code, right? Today is my first class. This is not a code. So I wanted to take it as a comment, okay. Comment is the textual information which can be present in your code window, so that anyone is coming, and if they want to see who has done what changes, what kind of task is being performed, so that kind of information can be given with the help of comment or comment line, okay. So how to make a line as a comment line? So what I'll do is I'll two ways it can be done, okay. Either you can use this menu, you can keep the cursor on the current line which you want to make it as a comment line. You can use this dashes to make it as a comment line. This is one way. The other way is by using the shortcut key, okay. Like for example, I am writing some information. So this is some information I have given. I want to make this line as a comment line. I can use Control K C together, okay. I can use Control K C together to make a line as a comment line, okay. The other thing is, suppose you want to write an SQL code and you want to perform the task. So what I'll do is I'll tell you how to create a database. Then in the next class we'll see, when we are doing the practical sessions, we'll see that how to create the tables and everything you will learn, okay. For example, I want to create a database with the name Vivek, okay. So how do I do so? So I can write create database name. So we will see that what are the rules which we need to follow to give the name when we will meet for the DDL session. That would be the very first session for us. So this is just an introduction. Just for example, I am creating a database. So how do I do so? I have to select this, okay, the piece of code which I want to execute. Two ways to execute your code. One way is using this execute. The other way is by using the F5, either F5 or a function F5, depends your laptop whether it uses the function keys or without that. Okay, so I can go to this execute, I can click here. You can see that I am getting a message here, commands completed successfully in the message tab. Okay, so it means my database is created. How do I see this database? So to see this database, there are two things to be done. One is in the database, this plus is there, that is your explore. So when I click on this explore, okay, so you will see there the database which will be physically available here. Like you can see Vivek is available here in the down. Okay, one way is this to see, and within this you can see currently there are no tables available. So you won't be able to see any tables. Once we are creating the tables, that time you will see. So let's consider that you wanted to see those tables, you wanted to create those tables within your database. So how to do that? So for that, what you are supposed to do is, currently if you see where I am keeping my cursor, besides this execute, you have a drop down menu. Okay, so this is your available databases. So from here, using the drop down, either manually you go and you click on Vivek or the database under which you want to work, or you can use the command use whatever is the name of the database, and then also it could be executed. Like for example, just to show you, suppose here currently Praveen is selected and I want to change it to Vivek. So what I'll do is use Vivek, this piece of code I will execute. So you will see that on top it is selected with Vivek, and then I can perform my task. Like I can create the table, or if I want to retrieve the records from the tables present in Vivek or any other objects, I have to first change my available databases to the database, and then I can perform my task. Okay, next thing is these codes, if I am writing, you can see the yellow line is coming. What is this yellow line telling? Yellow line is telling that my code is not saved yet. Okay, whatever codes we are writing, if I close the session, codes will go, but the objects will be there. Like suppose if I have created the database, they will be there. I have created the tables, they will be there, but this code will be lost. What if next time if I want to open this code and see what I have done, or if I want to reuse them, so on and so forth. So in that cases, you can save your codes in similar lines, the way you save your Word file, Excel file. In same lines, you can save your SQL editor as well. How to save? Same commands, Control S. Okay, or you can go to this floppy, you can click here, or you can go to the file, you can use save as. Currently it would open in some C drive. Okay, so I won't be saving in this, because by chance if my system gets formatted, everything which is there in the C drive, I will be losing them. So what I'll do is I will save it in some other location where it is safe. So I will use some D drive, E drive, or whatever drive I am comfortable with. Let's consider I will go to the D drive. I have here a folder with SQL codes weekdays, and I will keep my files saved here. So for example, I'm giving some name to it. Let's say this is introduction session. And today's date is today is Wednesday, and so whatever names you want to give, you can give, no issues in that. So I have given this, and I'll click on save. Okay, now you will see that this yellow line is changed to green. So this code is saved now. Okay, now next thing is so let's consider that today's work I have done and I have closed my database. Okay, next time when I'm opening, so what am I supposed to do? So you can find your SQL Server Management Studio, and then you can click on that. So it would open. You have to connect to the database, and in case if you want to work within your database, please select your database. If you want to open your existing files, you can open. So first of all, I am clicking on connect to connect to my database, and then in case if you want to work in a new editor, click on new query, or else you want to work in the same query which you have saved. You wanted to see what kind of work you have done. You can use this open file icon. You can see Control O, or you can go to file, and here also you can do open, and you can click the same thing you do, and you can browse to your location where you have saved. Okay, I can click on this, I can save, I can open this. Now currently by default master database is selected. If I have to do any task, I have to use it within our database. When you work in an organization, you have to work within the defined company database. So first of all, please select the database either from the drop down, or you have written the code, you can execute, and then you can proceed. Okay, so this is how you are going to use your SQL Query Editor. More on this we will do time to time when we are working in the different sessions. Okay, that time more hands-on you will get. So for today I wanted to discuss till this much. Now if you have any issues, please do let me know. I am moving to the chat section. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. See you guys. Bye bye. Take care.